Hey there, folks. Thanks for joining on another episode. This is Alex here, and I'm going to take you through my big game, big plans for 2025, which is my tag application breakdown. Thought this was a really, really good one to tackle right now because we're in the midst of really what I would say prime application season. So we're just at the end of February. We've had a couple states that have just wrapped up, and we got a lot of stuff that's about to really just open up as far as the floodgates going for the tag application period of 2025. So I thought it was important to just talk about what am I doing for 2025 because I get asked all the time, hey, what do you think about this or what are you doing? So I'm gonna just tackle individual bullet points that I kind of wrote down in reference to what's going on, and I'm gonna spitball here and take you through every single state and talk about how many points I have and so on and so forth. So I think this should be fun. As far as 2025 goes, am I building points or am I cashing some in? That was a question that someone asked me. So as far as how I've planned, let me kind of give you broad scope of how I've done things. I have hunted more easily accessible units or over-the-counter units for pretty much majority of my hunting career. And the reason is because I have been banking points for quite a few years. And prior to that, I only hunted like over-the-counter hunts and I did some different games. So I have banked quite a few points. I did cash some points in over the years, but as you'll see, for the most part, I've kind of hung on to them. So for all the folks out there that are thinking that, they don't have good chances or they don't have good odds hunting in particular units because they're easier to draw and or over-the-counter hunts were looked down upon. Now, I got news for you. I've been doing that for a long period of time, and I've also been using different, I guess, avenues that maybe some people aren't aware of to get tags when I don't draw something. So as far as to answer that, am I building points? For the most part, I'm still building points, except this year, 100%. I don't really have something that I've already banked on that I'm going to draw. So I'm actually swinging for the fences in a lot of states, which I don't typically do because pretty much every year for the past, 5 or 6 years, I've had something planned already when I walk into the season. Could be a bear hunt. It could be a bear hunt and going to do some kind of Western whitetail, or maybe for, I know I'm going to draw pronghorn tags because I'm going into like a private property kind of scenario where I'm going to be, getting a trespass fee or whatever the case is, or maybe I'm going guided on something and I know for a fact that I'm going to draw that tag. So whatever the case is, for the most part, I'm still banking points because I am going to be swinging for the fences and likely I'm not going to draw. So that's to encompass it. However, am I trying to cash something in? Yeah, but I'm not trying to cash something in as like a for sure, if that makes sense. So we'll talk more about that. What species am I prioritizing? It's another topic that I really wanted to hit on. I really apply for what I call the small three, and I do apply for the big three. So the small three are elk, deer, and antelope. Why are they the small three? Well, we call them the more common three or whatever it is. But most guys, especially when I talk tag applications, most people are applying for elk, deer, and antelope. And that's just because, well, elk, everybody's dreaming about it, right? I think elk is just synonymous with mountain hunting in the West, which is amazing. And then you have mule deer, which are my favorite animal to hunt, and then antelope, which is my favorite game meat. And those three, they encompass pretty much everybody's applications. Sheep, goat, and moose, I'm really going after because those are those once in a lifetime species. I do think I'm in a position where potentially in the next 20 years, yeah, I might be able to hunt those species and be able to still do those hunts. Granted, I'm in good enough shape, which is why if you hear or have listened to the podcast, I do emphasize quite a bit on fitness, and that's a big part of it. Like, you got to get your ass in shape if you plan on doing any of these hunts, or you're going fully guided and you expect somebody to be doing a lot of the work for you, which is not frowned upon. Certainly, I'm just kind of relating to like sheep and moose and goat. Those are tough because they're either physical or it's physically grueling to get out with those animals, aka a moose. That's a huge animal. So unless somebody's packing that thing out for you, you better be in physical, ability to do that. So anyways, We'll talk more about that, but I'm hitting on all of those, and I do apply for bison in a few different places, and bear, and some other exotics that I'm hitting on. So, as far as states and what I've prioritized, this is always a big one. Hey, what states am I applying in, and do I apply to different states different years? Well, for the most part, I'm pretty consistent. So that's a big one. As I'm going to take you through, I'm going to take you through a breakdown of each state here. But as far as I do look at high point states and where I could draw this year. But as I said, I'm not looking for like the for sure bet. So here's a for sure bet. If I know last year that in Colorado, a mule deer unit went for 9 points and I have 11, I'm not going after that unit to try to draw it that took 9 points last year for like a guaranteed thing. So matter of fact, I'm not trying to draw a deer tag, period. I'm actually going to potentially, depending how things look, go to other avenues to maybe get a tag, at least, as far as like a last case scenario. And then there are states where I'm still in early stages of building points. That could be because I cashed them out, or it could be something that I maybe added in as of recent because I just want some other opportunities. So I'll talk more about that. Here's my breakdown though. So Arizona, I've got 11 points for antelope. I have 7 for bighorn sheep. I got 7 for bison. I have 4 for elk, and I have 6 for deer. So you can tell I'm kind of in the middle of the rebuild phase for elk and deer. I did not start off right off of the rip with bighorn sheep and bison. I should have, but to be frank, I think as I was starting, I took it a little bit easier, and I built them up over time. So I started, 4 or 5 years later. Hindsight 2020, I should have just started off. So for all the folks that kind of start off and they're really like, maybe I will want to hunt those things, just frickin' start applying for them. Or just start building points for them, because you don't want to look back and go, man, I lost 5 years. And I'm telling you for this from experience, because I go look at it and I'm like, yeah, those are bonus point opportunities in those states. So it's not like deliberately point for point that you're going to draw or not, but you do want the most opportunity possible. So give yourself that chance if you're starting right now and you do think you're going to want to go after those animals, do it. Colorado, that's a big one for me. I've got 11 points for deer. I've got 10 points for elk. I got 7 for moose. I got 7 for antelope. I got 3 for sheep. I got 4 for goat. And again, these are the way that the draw works, or the applications work for moose, sheep, and goat. Those are a factor of you have to build up 3 points before you even get the ability to technically apply in that draw. So when I'm saying like 7 points, that's basically out of the 3-point draw. So I've been applying for quite a while for moose. And again, I kind of drug my feet on sheep and goat. So will I have a chance? Maybe, or maybe I'm just going to have to fork over a ton of money to Alaska or whatnot, and or maybe I'm going to go to BC, or who knows, whatever the case is. But this is a constant conversation point with folks. So think about it. Hopefully this conversation actually gets you to think about things. Maybe you do get the opportunity. You're lucky enough to harvest a Rocky Mountain Bighorn, or a desert ram, whatever the case is. You might get that sheep love that's now going to make you want to really tackle like the grand slam. And if that's the case, you don't want to be trying to chase it. So again, if you think you're going to want to play around with sheep, then start kind of playing around with it for every opportunity that you can. So for myself, if I talk Arizona, I am applying for pretty much everything this year, just swinging for the fences. Elk and antelope, the draw just happened. As of recording this, they have not posted them online yet, but they will, likely within a day from now. But I can tell you my credit card was not charged. So I am 99.9% certain, because my card should have been charged by now, that I did not draw any antelope and I did not draw an elk tag this year. So that's going to leave me for applying for deer, bighorn sheep, and bison. And we'll see kind of where that lands. For Colorado, though, I have no intention of drawing anything with my 11 deer points, and I have no intention of drawing anything with my elk 10 points. I am throwing in the moose, sheep, and goat play, and I am not trying to draw anything for my antelope. If I do, let me kind of backtrack. One of my things this year is I am going to put in for an archery unit as my second choice for elk. and I'm going to take a preference point as my first. So if you're a client listening or somebody that's kind of played around with the systems or maybe thought about it in Colorado, you have the opportunity to just basically say, like, I want my first choice to be a preference point, and then I will put my second choice as whatever I might want to draw this tag if I have a chance. So this year is going to be interesting because this is the first year for Colorado that all of the archery tags for elk are gone from the over-the-counter aspect, and they're all in a draw. So it's anybody's guess of what's going to happen as far as how many points are going to be needed for certain things, because if you think about it, I could purchase an over-the-counter elk tag for archery, and I could technically unit hop. I could go unit to unit to unit until I found one. Or I know, like, oh, well, these are the most desired units, so I'm going to go hit these. You can't do that now.
Attention hunters, are you sick and tired of the complicated draw systems and tag applications that take place out west? Or maybe you want to plan a western hunt, or maybe one of your dream hunts, and you don't really even know where to start. Well, that's where East to West Hunts comes in. We take care of everything for you. We'll do the tag applications. We just need to put a strategy in play for you of what you're trying to do and when you're trying to go. Whether it's short-term, mid-term, or long-term, we want to have that play and that strategy together. And when you do draw a tag, we can look at do-it-yourself options, such as hunt plans that detail out exactly how to hunt those areas, or we can get you booked with a guide and outfitter in that specific unit or area. So don't leave that hunt to chance. Give us a call, set up a time on the website, contact us on social media, whatever it is, and let's get planning towards that dream hunt of yours. And let's make it a reality. Check us out on www.east2westhunts.com. Again, that is www.east2westhunts.com. Also check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and podcast. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
And that was kind of the complaint in Colorado of people were really upset with, like, the spots that were really, really hit hard with these over-the-counter tags. And that's because you had no ramifications of what unit you would go to or not. And that pissed a lot of people off. I actually like to hunt those hard units in a sense of physicality because a lot of people don't do them. So that's my opinion to it. But I really have no idea what the hell that's going to look like as far as applications go and points. So I'm going to put in for something as a second choice. We'll see what happens, but that would be like if I got a point and I drew an archery elk tag for Colorado. So that's kind of my opportunity plays. And then here's another really, really good thing to add. These past years in Colorado, you always could play it as a state where if you drew, you could return your tag back and you would get your points back. And you would be able to get a refund as long as you returned it within like this 5-day window. So I use that a lot for myself or for clients. The crappy part about it was this year, they made a change here where, like, if you used your first choice in drawing a tag, you are going to lose those points when you draw that tag, right? And then if you choose to return it, you have to pick if you want to get the money back or if you want to get your points back. And that's going to be kind of a tougher pill to swallow because you were like totally whole if you returned it. The only thing that you didn't get was you didn't get your extra point. So essentially, like, if I drew a tag this year and I returned it, playing out the old scenario, I could get my money back and I could get my points back, but I could not get the point that I would have gained this year. So technically I didn't gain anything. Now I'm going to have to pick and choose if that's the case. If it's your second option, you don't lose any points. So therefore, what's going to happen? Well, I'm going to get my refund. If worse comes to worse, I draw a moose tag or something, I can play that out. So that's a little play that I really like to work out for clients as we kind of play things out. Feel free to use that obviously in your tag application strategy, but that's totally how I play it. And it's worked really well. Now just adding an extra nuance because it's got to be a secondary option, not your primary, unless you are okay, losing your 800 plus bucks and just getting your points back, which honestly, that's exactly what I would do if I drew a primary. I'd eat the cost because my years of points are way worth more than 800 bucks. Kansas, I've had the ability to hunt Kansas quite often. So I got a point there. I burned that a few years back. basically hunted that every other year or so. Yeah, I'm gonna build another point here unless I'm fortunate enough to go again and see where that goes. There has been some point creep in Kansas, especially in those archery seasons. So we'll see where that lands. Montana, I do have in my tag application strategy. And, as far as big tags in the works, same deal, right? So I apply for sheep, moose, goat. We'll see where that lands, as far as like quality goes. And I guess sheer size, I'm not as excited, I guess, on sheer size and all that for a bighorn sheep or even moose. There's some other states that I would look at, but there's opportunity there. And if I'm fortunate enough to draw something there, awesome. The mountain goat, though, is probably my biggest appeal, honestly, out of those three for applications. Again, I'm swinging for the fences. So if I was to draw any of those, I would be giddy as all get out. So I'd be a kid in the candy store running around. And then I got 6 deer points. And these are bonus points, folks, I'm talking about. So not to be confused with the big game combo preference points. And then elk, I got 7. And then antelope, I have 5. And then as far as the big game combo, I got 1 point. And I essentially, this is an interesting one for me. I'm really not set yet of what I'm going to do here because I might throw in to apply for the big game combo. And because I have a point already from last year, I could apply and not purchase the second point before applying. And therefore, I technically have applied, so it keeps my continuity of things, but my odds would be pretty crappy of drawing. Or I apply and I purchase the second point, and that's going to give me pretty much a guarantee that I do draw. And I would put in for the big game combo, so I'd get the elk and the deer tag. However, this is kind of an interesting year for me because I just have some earlier season stuff that I'm doing. I do have an aoudad hunt coming up in March. So that's taking some time away for me, from the family and getting out and hunting, some of my hunting time for the year. So if I wasn't doing this March hunt, I would have like 2 to 3 weeks to play around with for the fall for like a Montana tag for both of those species. But because I am taking time out to do this, I'm a little bit torn on what I want to get that tag or not. So I have actually not confirmed what I'm going to do with Montana yet. Do I not apply at all and eat my preference point? Do I apply with 1 point and have the continuity and then kind of go into the next year? Or do I just bite the bullet and try to draw and then figure it out? And then if I can't do it, I can't do it, and I eat the tag. I don't know, kind of see where that plays. But that is actually my biggest dilemma this year as far as the strategy, because I rather kind of focus on what I'm applying for out of the sheep, goat, moose kind of factor, and almost like leave the big game combo to the end there. And then I'll give bonus points at the end of the year for sheep, goat, moose, deer, elk, and antelope. So that's a big one. I don't know if you guys are in that dilemma or not, but that is the big one. And Montana is it's super confusing. I mean, I know you probably heard me say this 100 times if you've listened to the podcast or listened to me on another podcast or you read articles, whatever the case is. But Montana the system is terrible in my opinion, because the way that it's worded is you believe that you are building points, these preference points, but in reality, it's not like that, because you want to draw the tag, or actually, let's kind of go back. You want to apply for this preference point the year before you're going to want to draw. So in December, if we go in and get a preference point, then we really want to be hunting the following year. So in 2024, because I bought a preference point, it's saying that I have the intention of hunting in 2025 because I would buy that second point and go. But if I don't even apply, I lose that preference point. So now it's kind of like you're just stuck in this never-ending cycle of like applying for this preference point. And then if you don't have these preference points built up, your opportunity is kind of all over the place with utilizing your bonus points, because you can't even draw those bonus point tags if you don't draw the general combo. So if you got questions on this, reach out, set up a time to talk, whatever the case is. But I don't want to confuse you anymore, but it's a really stupid system in my opinion, and it confuses the hell out of people. I think it confuses people when I'm even talking about it. I'm trying to do it as simple as possible. So I'm going to move on. But Montana, if you're listening, you should really just change your system. But those are hopes and dreams at this point. Nevada, hands down. If you ask me what's my favorite state to apply to, Nevada, hands down, love it. Secondary, probably Arizona, but Nevada is the jam. Why? Well, you got prime opportunities for sheep, desert bighorn, California bighorn. It's just a quantity versus quality play, and they're not very nice to non-residents as far as how many tags they get out. But if you get a tag, it's a badass tag. I mean, you should be jumping for joy, and it doesn't matter what animal it is. The other one is if you're an elk hunter in Nevada, they treat it as like their top tier species, like just like it would be a desert bighorn. So the other thing is if you draw an elk tag, whether you harvest or not, you go into a lockout period after that draw where you can't even apply for points for 7 years. So take it from me, as somebody that lived there and drew a tag, I hunted spike elk 1 year. And the reason I hunted spike elk was because I wanted to draw a tag in that same unit. I wanted to really know it inside and out. The following year, I was blessed enough to draw a elk tag and a mule deer tag for the same unit. And I went back in there, and before my hunt, there was a fire in a unit that was parallel to it. And I had the opportunity. Game and Fish had reached out and said, would you like to return your tag, get your points, whatever the case is? And I was like, I know where I'm going. I'll go crush it. That was a mistake. That hunt went from me seeing the prior year, 400 or 500 head of elk, and just, feeling as confident as possible that would be like a tough hunt, but I would crush it, to like the elk just completely shifted, because when I got into that unit, it was super like smoky. It looked foggy all day long. It just smelled like stuff was burning because the wind was blowing everything from the other unit over, which I didn't think was going to happen. And it screwed things up. Did I see elk? Yes. I did not see any large elk. And it was a crappy hunt. So I've actually been under that period of wait. Let's put it that way. So yeah, it's tough. Anyways, so here's kind of where I'm at. I got 9 points for the sheep opportunities. I have 9 points for antelope. I have 6 for bear, and I have 1 mule deer point. I have 0 elk points because I had burned that elk point on the bull elk. I do have points for cow and spike, but I don't remember how many. I don't have them written down in front of me here, but it's only a few. It's not a ton. So anyways, I could go and hunt spike elk and all that kind of deal. Maybe that would be something that I should kind of throw into, but I have not considered it as of now because I just have other stuff in the priority. So for me, the big ones are I'm going to throw in for sheep, and I'm going to apply for mule deer and antelope, and I'm not applying for bear. And elk next year will be my year to finally get back into applying for it. Oregon, I have elk, deer, and antelope points. Just 1. I don't recommend a lot of people apply to Oregon. I applied a few years back just to start getting a point. It's just sucky. Honestly, it's just costly. Not great odds of drawing anything great. There are some over-the-counter options in both Washington and Oregon. So if you really wanted to get out, that's an opportunity. But there's nothing sexy there that gets me like really amped up about applying. So I won't apply again there. Maybe if I want to throw some cash at it, I might get some points there. But as far as right now, not something that I foresee doing anything with. South Dakota. So South Dakota is an interesting one. This is something that I started adding a couple of years ago, actually. It's something that a buddy of mine were talking about. And he said, really never thought about hunting South Dakota all that much. And, there were some opportunities with like over-the-counter archery, antelope tags, things like that. But started applying. They got an interesting way of doing their point structures. You're essentially paying for points for particular like seasons per species, which is interesting. And they have like a name particularly to like an area. But they got a very, very late period for getting points at the end of the year. So a lot of times it's really good, especially for clients that start later in the season from essentially they're starting the prior year for the next year as far as points. A lot of times like South Dakota is a pretty good recommendation on my part. So that's a cool one. So I got a couple points there. I'm just going to get more points this year. I have no intentions of going to South Dakota yet. But that would kind of fall in line with like, I might go to Nebraska or something. There's a lot of opportunities in some of those like Western states that kind of fall almost like Midwesty. So yeah, I don't know. I have no intentions of hunting it right now, but next year could change. So points on the board. Utah. Now, Utah I've been applying to for years. I am going to throw in I got 11 points for elk. I got 11 points for deer. I got 10 points for bison, moose, goat, sheep. And I have 8 points for the general deer, which Utah kind of does it funky because they kind of break them into like premium and limiteds and generals and stuff like that as far as their tags go. Yeah, it's just interesting. And you can see how it is. It's like almost like the most sought after unit to like a sought after unit and then to like a general unit, kind of breaks it down. And then I also have points for what they call the dedicated hunter program, which basically is a general deer tag, but you're committing to hunting it for 3 years. And you can harvest up to $2 out of the 3 years. So essentially, if I drew that, which I would be guaranteed to draw this year, gosh, I could have drawn that years ago, but just keep buying points for it. It's fine. But essentially, if I hunted that this year and I harvested $1, then the next 2 years, I could only harvest one more buck. So if I hunted 2 years in a row and killed $2 in a row, the third year I don't hunt because I basically tapped out what it was. But that's a pretty cool program. The point to that program, though, is for service hours in the state of Utah. So I would actually be buying out my service hours, and it's pretty pricey per hour. So you'd be spending a nice chunk of change if you did that. But again, you're guaranteed this tag for 3 years. So kind of a cool deal. But again, I'm swinging for the fences for all those big things. I'm not swinging for the fences on a general tag. So it's a point, and I'm going to add it. And then if I want to go out there for any period of time, we'll see. I might burn that general tag and then kind of figure out what I want to do with that dedicated hunter program. Maybe apply with somebody. I think that would be a cool one with a buddy or even with a client, honestly, getting a point and then, applying for the dedicated hunter and being able to hunt it 3 years in a row. That'd be super cool. Just kind of a go-to. You really get to know your area, so on and so forth. Wyoming, same deal. I am not applying for the general, or I did not apply for the general elk tag, and I didn't apply for elk period this year. I am not applying for deer this year there. I'm just going to get points. And antelope, I hunted recently, so I only have 1 point right now, so this will be my second point that I build up this year. And that's kind of where I land. I have a set unit in mind that I really want to hunt with elk. Probably would go outfitted, honestly. It's a badass wilderness hunt. It's kind of been a dream hunt of mine, but yeah, I'm going to keep kind of tackling it. I'm kind of on that teetering point of if I think I could draw it or not. And then deer, I think there's some great deer opportunities in the state. So, when I'm ready to kind of pull that trigger, I will. So really, if you kind of heard all of those things, what do I have? Well, here's one other state, New Mexico, I did not talk about. The reason I didn't talk about New Mexico is because there's no points. And for the folks that are really trying to talk about like, hey, where are you applying, where are you drawing points, or where are you getting points, and so on and so forth. But since New Mexico doesn't have them, you kind of can apply any given year to go there. So this year, I am swinging for the fences in New Mexico. A couple points that a lot of people don't know. So again, if you're applying with me and I'm doing your applications, we probably talked about this. If you've been doing your apps for a while, you're probably well in tune to it. If you're new to the game, there are states that there are no points. There's no preference points. There's no bonus points. There's just you apply and your odds are your odds. So think of it as it's a lottery ticket. If your name gets called on the raffle ticket, whatever the case is, you got the tag. So each unit in particular will have a different amount of non-resident tags. And then in New Mexico, they also have a guided draw. So if you sign a contract with a guide, you get put in a different pool, and that's for a little bit more tags per se in that pool. So technically your odds go up higher if you're willing to fork out some more cash. New Mexico is also a huge landowner tag state. So really is kind of the highest payer kind of factor. I mean, some of those tags are ridiculous. I think last year I had an opportunity to book some clients with some tags, and they were, you know, $12, $13, $14, $15,000 kind of deals. So there's a lot of cash up for grabs in that sense, as far as like those landowner tags, and they pair them with guided hunts. So moral of the story is, if you wanted to get out to New Mexico and you wanted to really like chuck some dollars there, you certainly could do whatever your heart desires. In my case, I'm applying. So I'm going to apply for the exotics, ibex and oryx. I'm going to apply for Barbary sheep. I'm going to apply for elk. I'm going to apply for deer. I'm going to apply for antelope. And we'll see what sticks, kind of a deal, throughout the year. I've wanted to go shoot a Barbary sheep, so that aoudad hunt in Texas, that's not a draw. It's an exotic. And again, it's, you're basically getting access to private land to go hunt it. So that's kind of been my goal. So got the opportunity. Here we go. We'll see where that kind of takes me for Texas. And then, past that point, I wanted to talk about Idaho, because Idaho, I'm likely to apply to Idaho for moose. And the reason is because the way that the structure works over there is, they got these general tag sales December 1st. So you essentially could go and buy a tag if you are fortunate enough to be in line to have the opportunity to, which this year there were like 55,000 people online and waiting to try to get a tag. And well, I can tell you what, there is not 55,000 tags. So a lot of people got the shit end of the stick there, which this year kind of sucked, to be honest. I helped quite a few people out with getting their tags, and it was not great. And while the system did not crash, which is awesome, Idaho, awesome, for the first time, a lot of folks went in line in person and nabbed those tags. So like last year, a tag that was, took 20 minutes to sell out, it took like 5. So clearly a lot of people literally flew or drove into Idaho and went to Game and Fish offices when they opened to buy these tags because they didn't want to screw around online. So they kind of changed the game a little bit. So anyways, with moose, it's one of their like bigger species. So you can only pick one of these opportunities that you want to apply for. So for me, that opportunity is moose. And I'm gonna swing for the fences there. But in my opinion, if we want to stick to that way, Idaho is a good spot to apply. You get the largest moose possible as far as like genetics go and all that jazz. No, but you want to get a moose tag in your pocket, that's a good opportunity. Now, here's what I was going to add. Idaho and New Mexico require you, for Idaho, certain species, but in New Mexico requires that you front load the money for those tags, similar to what Wyoming does, but Wyoming actually has points where New Mexico and Idaho don't. And essentially, so for New Mexico, it's not unheard of if you're going to apply for ibex, oryx, Barbary sheep, elk, deer, pronghorn. It's not unheard of that you're going to rack up your credit card to like $10,000+, and they're going to hang on to it for a little bit, and then you're going to find out if you drew. And then if you didn't draw, then you get a refund minus the application fees and processing fees. But if you drew, then you're going to find out that you drew and you already paid for it. Then you're going to get the tag in the mail. So that's just a nuance to it. So for some folks, not for me, I know I'm kind of talking broad term here, but for some folks, it does keep people out of the application game in some of these states where you have to front load the fees because people don't have a huge credit line, or they don't want to have a credit line, or they don't have the money in the bank to do it because they don't have credit cards, which is actually why I offer a float service, is because people can have me do it and I float those tags in that sense, which a lot of people take advantage of. So I'm going to float my own stuff, and we'll see how that goes. But I have a good feeling about New Mexico this year. I don't know why. Just one of those feelings. I said that when I drew my elk tag for Arizona a few years back. And that whole time, I was just like, man, I have a really good feeling. And I drew a great tag. So I'm saying it here. I'm saying it on the air. I'm saying it. I just feel like something good in New Mexico is going to happen this year. So we will see. So some other questions that I've had is, and I think I've answered these, but to kind of follow up on it and relate to it, do I chase high odd hunts or do I hold out for a dream tag? Well, as you know, I have I've literally hunted over the counter or low point units for a long time. I mean, since 2010. So what is it? 2025. So 15 years of like applying and getting over the counter stuff. Like that's just kind of how I worked. I've hunted majority low point unit areas. And to be frank, I think it makes you a better hunter. I really do, because I've gone on some hunts where it's like they're really good tags and it's a different hunt. It's not even close. I mean, just the amount of animals that you see, it's just not even close. So a big deal there. Balancing points, over the counter opportunities, and long-term applications. Like, where do you land with that? So, well, you heard, I'm kind of I am playing around with points. I'm building points. There's really not many over the counter opportunities that I would even consider. If I did, though, I would go do a spike hunt in Utah archery. That's the over the counter opportunity that I would do. Oh, and I forgot one other state that I apply to that I have not talked about, but I apply to Iowa every year. So I have a few points there. So I will be taking advantage of that in the near term here, which is probably next year. But for 2025, just getting a point. And that, and then obviously I apply to Maine for moose, and I'm just getting points there. And then Michigan, obviously, I apply here for like elk and bear and stuff like that. But those are swing for the fences too, because of their high points or their bonus point structures. So, all right, need to grab a drink there. Get the throat over here. All right, so what happens if I don't draw any tags this year? Well, that would be the tough part, because if I don't go to Montana, or I lose the point, whatever, it doesn't matter. Even if I lose the point, I don't apply, whatever the case is. That would be an opportunity that I wasted. So that one will hurt a little bit. And then let's say I don't draw a second chance tag in Colorado. The one thing that I will say here, and this is to answer the question or that thought, is I will look at Colorado. Colorado is late to the game when they give us the application results. Typically last part of May, like May 29th, something like that. So I think it's going to actually be a little bit earlier this year. Might be like May 24th or May 26th or something like that. Anyways, it's that last week of May. Bank on that. But most other states are going to tell you what's going on by then. So you're going to know. And that's been the nice part about Colorado, because with their return period, you got this like 5-day window from the post of the results and so on and so forth. So that'd be sweet if I do draw a second chance tag. If I don't, though, I have crushed it on the return tag list. So in Colorado, a lot of states do something in another draw or return tags, leftover tags, whatever the case is. But I would definitely be looking at the return tag list in Colorado, and I will snipe something off that list. I've done it the last 2 years in a row. That's actually how I've gotten my tags the last 2 years in Colorado. I've not used my points. I did not draw them. So that's a big opportunity for me. And then if not, I also would look at some really, really late opportunities for return tags. Essentially, it's a list of tags that are left in Idaho, and they have these late periods of it before the residents can snag one again. So that's an opportunity. And then last but not least, and by the way, those Idaho tags, it's not like they're great or anything like that, but I do know areas to go hunt over there, and I could take advantage, and I'm pretty certain I could do well. But I would go do a Utah hunt if it came down to it and I didn't have anything planned. Those spike hunts are great because you're hunting in premier units in Utah, and I think that's awesome. So I think there's good opportunity there too. And then if anything changes, yeah, it changes. I could always look at some last minute drop camp ideas in Idaho for with an outfitter. They have these outfitter allocated tags. That's always a good possibility. And then get creative. But there's always opportunities is the moral of the story. So I will find something if I don't draw. But I got a pretty good feeling I'll draw something if I swing for the fences on all these things. And this is pretty much the first year in like 5 or 6 years that I'm like swinging for the fences on a lot of stuff. So we'll see if I am lucky. So other questions that I had and I kind of noted here were, am I applying for anything different than in the years past? Kind of. I've stuck to kind of the same cadence of states. But the way that I would say that is because I'm throwing in for all of these different species, that is different. I've never thrown in for like Barbary sheep, ibex, oryx, and bison all in the same year, kind of a deal, on top of like all these rams and mountain goats and moose. So that's a little bit different for me. Typically, I'm just very tactical and calculated because I know what's going to happen for the most part. As far as like, I got a question here that's kind of listed. It says, lessons learned from past applications. What would you share? I think I've kind of given you a lot of good ideas here as far as where things go and how I've kind of finagled the system and how I do it for clients as well, depending on their states and goals and so on and so forth. The one thing that I will add as far as like a caveat to, the difference of where you apply and when you are trying to get a tag based on the specifics of the weapon. I don't really discriminate on the weapon piece. Some people are so hardcore on archery, and some people are so hardcore on rifle, and nobody really gives two shits about muzzleloaders, unfortunately, but that's a really, really good opportunity if you could shoot one and practice one enough. Throw in for those different opportunities, because that is a really, really good one. You technically will have good opportunities. And if you're watching a video, my video here just threw a thumbs up, but kind of funny, these emojis and stuff. But anyways, as far as like utilizing those to your benefit, because when I go look at statistics and I'm talking about it with a client, I'm looking at, hey, like if you want to go out hunting this year, not getting a tag in the rut, you're going to have higher opportunities. Or maybe you're just stuck on this one thing, but now you're like, okay, well, I want to hunt in colder weather versus warmer weather, or warmer weather versus colder weather, whatever it is. Like those are going to dictate some kind of draw statistics of differences. So learn lessons. Like I play out what I want to hunt and if I really want to go with that weapon. So, part of my dilemma with Montana this year is because in Montana, if I draw that big game combo, I can go hunt archery and then I can go back for rifle if I don't kill anything, or if I only kill one of the species or whatnot. And I really do like having a rifle in hand, but the excitement of hunting elk in the rut, it's sexy, and it's not as sexy with a rifle. And that's the difference. And honestly, the cold sucks. I mean, those late seasons in Montana, it's cold as hell. So that's a big factor. The other one, am I hunting with anybody or not? I hunt solo a lot, and I don't really like hunting solo in grizzly country. So that's another factor for me of like, do I want to go take that on, have a bear fence, the whole deal, have a camp by the road and hike in, like all those nuances. I haven't done a full hunt plan for myself yet of what that looks like. And I'm not going to until I kind of see what other things do or where they land. But those are all things that kind of play in my mind from past applications and things that I've learned as far as, things that I'm drawing or whatnot. Here's another question that I had. Hey, Alex, as far as tag systems that are becoming tougher, where do you see things being tougher as far as point creep in preference versus bonus points? Well, in my opinion, preference points are the ones that kind of play point creep. And the reason is because it's purely on preference. It's just saying like, hey, you got more points than me, you're going to draw. Bonus points, there's always a chance. However, there are states that do a bonus point system where the top point holders in bonus points technically works just like a preference point system. So it kind of shaves a few people right off the top, and it takes out a few tags right off the top because they are the top point holders. So Arizona is a perfect example of this. And you can kind of bank on the fact that you're like, oh, well, that unit drew at 19 points last year, I got 20, I'm going to apply for it. I probably will be one of the top point holders in that unit this year, even if the point creep goes up by 1. And that's how you would play it there. But point creep is legit, and that's why you really got to like battle that conversation with yourself of like, do I really want to hang out for these like crazy point places, or do I want to go and hunt every few years? So as far as advice for everybody here, if you're listening, I think about the decisions in between banking points and drawing a tag. As you can hear from my conversation here, I'm being very transparent and real with you. Like, these are things that genuinely are going through my brain for the given year. I'm spitballing here. None of this is like rehearsed information for you, just so you know. So it's legit. It's just kind of how I'm playing around with it. And, I got different thoughts year to year, but this is kind of where I land right now. I think it's important for everybody to understand the tag systems or to work with somebody that does. So if you have no desire of spending hours upon hours either learning it or digging into the weeds, then you should probably reach out and let's chat, because I'd love to help you and make it seamless. And, for the folks that get giddy over this, I applaud you. I do as well. And I think it's, different strokes for different folks. But at the end of the day, as I like to say, you're either the guy that likes to do your own oil change, or you love to do your own taxes, or you hate doing all of those things, or you just appreciate the time savings. It doesn't matter which one of those three pillars you land on. This is just, it kind of falls in that similar respect. You're gonna either put the time in, or you're gonna spend a little money for the savings of time, and it's awesome either way. So that's just the truth of it. Tools that I use, this is always a big question. I use it all. Honestly, I use everything out there. I use like 4 or 5 different platforms as far as like the mapping software. I use a ton of Google Earth. I use all the state websites, which I know there's a ton of stuff out there as far as like Onyx has their own thing. But again, it takes time and effort to put into these things. But if you're going to use it, or you really want to kind of spitball with stuff, it's great. So I use Onyx. I use multiple different services, but the state websites are like the bread and butter, and they're just not sexy to look at. Like, you're literally looking at a spreadsheet, but it just gives you the best information. And that's where I spend a lot of my time. So for clients, just so you know, that's the key component, man. Like, I'm sitting here looking at different things, spinning my wheels and talking to you, and prepping for calls and whatever the case is. That is, the state websites are the jam. So there's a lot of information out there. It's just how much time you want to put in that information. So for me, my kind of closing thoughts here are, I encourage you guys to apply to the states. As you can see, I apply to a ton of different stuff. I don't advise that you just do one state and one species. Like, get involved 3 states minimum, 5+ if you're really just jamming. And if you got a few bucks to spend, here's why I say the few bucks. I easily spend, I don't know, $2,500 a year, maybe more, just in applications and licenses. So it's not cheap. Like, none of this is cheap. If you think this is a cheap sport, it's not. And it's kind of equivalent to golf, in my opinion, even though I hate golf. For everybody that I just offended, I'm sorry. But it's expensive. If you like to go golf and drink and go to the country club and buy golf balls and lessons and everything else, and you're going 2-3 days a week, like, that shit is expensive. So I want to hear no excuses that you can't afford to go hunting if you're doing that. But in that same realm, just know, like, if you're going to do this, you just spend $2-3 grand a year, like, easy, just in the applications. And then your tag is going to be like $1,000. Like, I don't know many tags that are, there's tags that are $400 or $500. You want to go elk hunt though, like, you better bank on you're spending $1,000. And if you're not spending $1,000 on that tag, trust me, you're going to end up spending more money on some other shit. So, moral of the story, like, you got to know that you're going to spend money. So, you're either going to be stingy with it or you're not. But if you're stingy with it, in 10 years from now, you ain't going hunting anywhere. That's going to be easily accessible. So, moral of the story is, get involved. Don't do what I did, where I started applying for stuff, and then 5 years later, I started getting involved with other stuff. Just get involved now. And last but not least, if you are not in shape, use these years where you're building up points to get in really good shape. And I hate saying that, because I always say, like, what the hell does shape mean? You need to be physically fit. And what I mean by that is, like, you need to test your body in some crazy stuff. Go run, go really try to get yourself to run, sub 10-minute, 9-minute, 8-minute, 7-minute miles. Go run some 5Ks, go do some crazy hikes, go do some stuff that's really going to test you. And I promise you that's going to come down to benefit you in the long run. Because if you draw one of these tags and you are not physically fit, it's going to crush your hopes when you can't go do that hunt, or you're going to look back and you go, I just wasted that hunt and I don't know that I'm ever going to draw that again. So just don't be sad when you had control over it. So that's my thought. As far as priorities and kind of key takeaways that I want you to have today, my priority states this year are going to be really Colorado, New Mexico, and Montana in a sense, I'd probably say. And then obviously we talked about kind of backups to that. But yeah, you know what I'm applying for. I am very curious to what you are all applying for. So, hey, share your plans with me. Shoot me a note on Instagram at East to West Hunts. Shoot me an email, info@easttowesthunts.com. And if you want to chat more about tag applications, hunt planning, getting involved, want to book a hunt, whatever the case is, head over to the website, www.east2westhunts.com. Click that free consultation button and yeah, let's talk. Set up a 40-minute call there and let's see what we can do, or, if I can help you. And I'll be pretty transparent about it. So appreciate you hanging in there and listening to me. I love it. I love all the participation. I appreciate everybody tagging along. And really, until next time, we'll see you on the next one. Remember to scout, hunt, and repeat. Thanks.